Welcome back sa ating YouTube channel, FilipiNoisy. So ngayong araw, another up na mayo about politika ng ating bansa. So ang video to is mula na naman kay Boss Balita TV. So meron itong pamagat na ESCUDERO nagsalita na grabe. PBBM ginulat si VP Sara, impeach na traidor, nagulat si VP Sara Duterte. So yan yung panonorin natin ngayon, men. Bibigyan natin to ng reaction, tapos syempre kayo na lang din bahalang humusga, no? So yun, bago natin simulan, Boss Balita TV, supportahan nyo yan. Tapos syempre kung trip nyo ng mga ganitong reaction na video, may kasama kayong manood, huwag nyo na rin kalimutang supportahan yung YouTube channel natin, FilipiNoisy. So mga kanoisy, hindi na natin to patatagalin pa. Simulan na natin, baka agawin pa ng China. Again, ang pamagat ng video ito, ESCUDERO nagsalita na grabe, PBBM ginulat si VP Sara, impeach na traidor, nagulat si VP Sara Duterte. So, Boss Balita TV, Senate of the Philippines, FilipiNoisy, like, comment, share, subscribe, start.
Ulat na balita. Grabe, Senate President Francis Cheese Escudero nagsalita na. Nagulat si Vice President Sara Duterte simula ng impeachment. Ayon sa nakalap natin impormasyon, niyanig di umano ang Senado nang biglang buksan ni Senator Coco Pimentel ang impeachment bigla versus Senate President SP Escudero. Nagkaroon ng diskusyon ng dalawa, abogado sa abogado ang labanan. Grabe si Senate
Buti na lang talaga, merong isang Coco Pimentel na kini-question talaga tong mga ganitong pagdi-delay ng impeachment par, kasi kung wala, ewan ko na lang, magulat na lang tayo, ay wala na, diba? Hindi na matutuloy yung impeachment, or parang delay hanggang sa mawala na nga. Diba? Buti na lang talaga. Tapos mayroon pang Senator Risa Hontiveros. So, yeah.
Cheese Escudero nagsalita na. Nagulat si Vice President Sara Duterte simula na ng impeachment. Tara panoorin natin.
Briefly, Senator Pimentel.
Mr. President, while I still have the floor, can I request for some information from the Senate President, especially regarding the impeachment calendar that is on our issue, because you issued the first impeachment calendar was issued by the Senate President when we were already on a break. I mean, Mr. President, tama po yun, di ba?
That is correct.
So, Mr. President, may we know when His Honor issued the first legislative calendar, impeachment calendar, which fixed June 2 as the time for receiving the House prosecutors, may we know the basis of the authority of the Senate President when he issued the first impeachment calendar, Mr. President?
Nako.
Article 1 of the impeachment rules, which says that the Senate President can set the date for the presentation of the articles of
Wait lang.
impeachment.
Kayo ba guys, sa tingin nyo ba, kalmado lang ba si Senate President Cheese Escudero, or pinipilit niya lang na maging kalmado? Comment nga kayo sa baba.
Specifically, of the Senate President. And also, we were on recess. So the Senate President at that time, Your Honor, issued a suggested calendar of activities. I was very clear when I stated that, subject to plenary approval when we resumed, because you were already on recess at that time. The second notice sent by this representation was made also while we were on recess, and I also stated that it was subject to plenary approval and or reversal, as the case may be, given the load that we need to take up after the LEDAC meeting.
So, yes, Mr. President, I noticed that no one from the majority was complaining about the original or initial impeachment calendar issued by the Senate President. So we were all looking forward to the date where there should be some action on the impeachment, which is
Yes.
June 2.
Supposedly, yes.
Yes, supposed to be. Kaninang 4 o'clock yung the prosecutors from the House of Representatives should have appeared before us to read the articles of impeachment. But then this was changed.
Diba?
So from
Naging
June 2,
11.
changed by the Senate President also. Now it's June 11 at 4 p.m.
Diba? Tapos okay lang sana par kung i-delay lang nila ng 1 day or maximum 3 days. Pero kung yan i-delay mo ng 9 days, like men, diba? Parang ano na naman yan, maghihintay na naman kami ng 9 days. Tapos after that, ipopospone na naman. Patatagalin na naman. Diba? Dapat simulan na kasi papalit na yung 20th Congress. Tapos parang may banta pa na baka hindi matuloy na. Kasi baka hindi nila tanggapin doon. So parang matatapon lang yung yung impeachment na yan. Marami pa namang mga ebidensya diyan. Parang lumalabas kasi dito, nafe-feel ng mga kababayan natin na parang hindi binibigyan ng pagkakataon, 'di ba? Na masimulan yung impeachment. 'Di ba? Kasi well, kahit tayo naman, sabihin natin, alam naman natin siguro na dumami yung bilang ng mga senador na pumapanig kay VP Sara. Pero at least na lang, 'di ba? Malaman ng taong bayan na itong mga ebidensyang to ay hindi lang to basta-basta joke lang. 'Di ba? Kasi may mga basihan tong mga ebidensyang to. Sige, given na kung sakali mang hindi talaga may impeach si VP Sara, at least na lang malaman ng taong bayan na itong mga ipinupukol sa kanya is may mga mabibigat na ebidensya. 'Di ba? Kahit 'yun na lang malaman ng taong bayan para malaman din ng taong bayan na ganyan, sobrang bibigat ng ebidensya. Kaso dinaan sa dami ng senador na bumoto na hindi ma-impeach si VP Sara kaya hindi na-impeach. 'Di ba? Para taong bayan na mismo yung humusga pagdating ditong 2028. 'Di ba? At least na lang yung katotohanan is lumabas siya. 'Di ba? Kasi kung ganyan na parang hindi masisimulan yung impeachment, parang iba na 'yon. 'Di ba?
So, if the authority used to issue the original calendar was based on the fact that we were on break, now that we are not on break, could not have the Senate President waited for 3 p.m. and then we discussed moving the June 2 4 p.m. to June 11 4 p.m.?
Because, Your Honor, notice had to be given to the House with respect to the proposed change in schedule. And we could not decide on moving it after the House members are already here in the Senate. That
Tapos
was the
singit
reason-
ko lang na after pa lang itackle yung impeachment na yun kay VP Sara, bibigyan siya ng 10 araw para mag-response. Diba? Isipin nyo na lang yun. Kung sinimulan sana siya sa June 2, edi by June 12, meron ng response si VP Sara. Tuloy-tuloy na sana. Kasi kung sisimulan yan this coming June 11, diba? Tapos meron siyang 10 days to response. So, makaka-response siya June 21 na. Diba? So, June 30, magpapalit na ng ng Kongreso or 20th Congress na yung isasalang. Ano na mangyayari doon? Diba? Ano yun? Matatapon na lang yung impeachment. Kaya, grabe. Parang harap-harapan talaga tayong dinadaan dito sa, palakasan system.
That was His Honor's judgment call, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President. Yes, Your Honor.
Just on another matter, Mr. President, yung appearance ba ng House prosecutors ay nasa Senate impeachment rules or you just took this from American practice, Mr. President?
It is not in the rules. That was lifted from American practice because what was done before was that the majority leader, the Senate majority leader, was the one that read the articles of impeachment that was referred to the committee on rules that triggered the convening of the impeachment court. When we researched on it, we thought it was more proper, given that we should have no part in the impeachment trial, in the prosecution of the impeachment case, that the prosecutors should themselves read the articles of impeachment, as is the practice in the United States, where we lifted most of our impeachment rules.
So it's an innovation. But although, had we done it, hindi naman, I don't think it would be fatal or make the proceedings infirm. So it's just not, to use the term of the majority leader, textually required under the existing Senate impeachment rules. Hindi pa ba?
No, what was required by our rules, if at all, was the referral of the impeachment complaint in plenary. Because mere filing with the Secretary General does not often by itself operate as the receipt by the Senate in plenary, given that, as with any communication, it has to be referred in plenary, officially by the Senate as a body.
Mr. President. Sige, Mr.
Dapat
President.
magpalit na ng Senate President Kasi parang wrong timing tong
With the permission.
Senator Tolentino, sir.
Minority
What is your
Leader.
pleasure, sir?
Would the loaded question of the good minority leader, if decoded, would mean that should the presentment be made before the Senate sitting as a plenary, or should the presentment be made before
Sinusulit na ni Tolentino. Hindi ito nanalo, di ba? Wala Iba kasi yung niya yung stand niya Parang sobrang playing safe masyado.
Senate constituted as an impeachment court? Baka yun po yung tanong nyo.
But it was the Senate President to research on American practice. How do they do it in the United
In
States?
plenary, Your Honors, not as an impeachment court. Because again, mere receipt by the SecGen does not operationalize or start the process of impeachment. Any communication, and that is a communication from the House, must be referred by plenary to the appropriate committee for proper action. That in turn will now trigger, if at all, the convening of the impeachment court, where the regular processes would now be followed, such as the issuance of summons, etc., etc.
Na-imagine ko yung para ba, what if si Robin Padilla yung malagay dyan sa Senate President? Makakasagot kaya siya the way na yung pagsagot ni Escudero? Or magsusuklay lang ng balbas? Di ba?
Rule, Mr. President, that it
I'm
should
sorry?
be, may we know what the specific rule? Is that in the rules or is that by practice or costumbre? Tingnan niyo ano rule.
Under Rule 3, Paragraph 2, upon presentation of the articles to the Senate shall specify the date and time for the consideration of the articles.
Yes, but
So the articles need to be presented to the Senate.
yes, but so your Honor is reading our Senate impeachment rules.
Yes.
Correct. So when we use the Senate in the Senate impeachment rules, we're talking about, we could be talking about the Senate as the impeachment court.
Grabe.
Because
We
the
have-
Senate.
Talino talaga ni ano men, Pimentel par. Grabe, ginisa niya ng husto eh. Ito yung mga ano talaga, mga ganitong kalibre na senador yung dapat nating iluklok ano. Yung magaling mag-cross-examine ba. So si Pimentel, since senador siya ngayon, baka this coming 2028, tatakbo pa rin siyang senador. So sana manalo pa rin siya. Or hindi ko rin alam kung last term niya na. Diba? Or may last term ba yung senador. So sana manalo pa siya, no? So ganitong mga senador kasi yung kailangan natin eh. Hindi yung mga, Willie Revillame, yung mga Philip Salvador na walang alam about sa, mga batas or dito sa Senado. Kita nyo naman yung kalibre, di ba? Sana marami tayong makitang mga ganitong senador eh. Ditong gaya kay Pimentel.
Virtue of the procedure in Articles 1 to 3, we have not yet convened the court, Your Honor. For example, succeeding rules in our impeachment rules, 4 onwards, would pertain to the Senate already as an impeachment court because that is already the trial proper beginning with the issuance of summons.
Mr. President, the second sentence already contradicts His Honor because it says, second sentence of that second paragraph of Rule 3, unless the Senate provides otherwise, it shall continue in session from day to day. Session na yan as court.
Grabe.
Kasi until final judgment eh. Yun na yun eh. So, the use of, when we use Senate in the Senate impeachment rules, we refer to the Senate as the court.
Yan. Sige sir, gisahin mo yan.
Mr. President,
According to the Secretariat, Your Honor, the dividing line is when we take our oath as senator judges and convene as such. Because we will be wearing 2 hats, Your Honor. As senators, performing our legislative and legislative function, and as members of the impeachment court, performing our sui generis function. And these are 2 distinct, if at all, hats and functions that we would be performing. That's why we have to adjourn session and convene as an impeachment court, and vice versa if we want to revert back as a plenary.
Well, Mr. President, ano na lang, for so as to,
Mr. President.
our staff can revisit. Ito yung sentence natin, ano? Second paragraph of Rule 3 of the Senate impeachment rules. Upon presentation of the articles to the Senate shall specify the date and time for the consideration of such articles. Unless the Senate provides otherwise, it shall continue in session from day to day until final judgment shall be rendered, and so much longer as may in its judgment be necessary. So, are we using the word Senate in one paragraph in 2 concepts? One, a Senate legislative body, and the other as the court?
I believe so, Mr. President, Your Honor. But again, since these manifestations, also the manifestation made by our distinguished majority floor leader himself earlier, after these manifestations are made, these matters and these statements will be referred to the Committee on Rules for them to look into it. We have time, Mr. President, Your Honor, to resolve this matter in due course in the next couple of days.
Mr. President,
Couple of days tapos alam naman natin, 'di ba, na patapos na nga yung 19th Congress. So, ewan ko kung nagigets ni Senate President ESCUDERO yung punto ng ilang mga politicians or ng ilang mga, halimbawa sila Pimentel, sila Hontiveros, sila De Lima, yung punto nila na dapat yung impeachment na yan simulan na agad kasi magko-conflict nga siya sa papalit na mga officials, di ba? So, ewan ko kung nagigets nila yan. Well, siguro kahit kayo naman siguro, nafe-feel nyo na yan na nung Pebrero pa lang, may something na dyan, di ba? Doon pa nga sa pinagbabardagulan nila na word na forthwith, di ba? Na wala, parang binabaliwara pa rin talaga nila. Which is, yun nga, wala tayong choice dati or parang mahihirapan din tayong argue that time kasi alam naman natin talaga na on recess yung yung mga senador natin. Kahit na yung iba naman, nagagawa nilang sumingit-singit. Kita nyo naman dati, di ba? Sila Senator Amy, sila Senator Cayetano, nag-special session din sila about dun sa pag-aaris kay FPRD. So, Kung pwede naman palang ganun, di ba? Why not simulan nila nung Feb pa lang? Para lang walang problema ngayon. Di ba? Pero, yan nga. Kaya na bahalang umusga para.
Yes.
If I can direct this question to the good minority leader, the Senate, even if not acting as an impeachment court, pwede po bang tumanggap ng mga non-members of this chamber to speak or make a presentation, a presentment? Di po ba naalala natin ng mga nakaraang panahon, pumupunta rito yung President of Vietnam, if I'm not mistaken, distinguished guests of this chamber are allowed to speak, not just honored. Ganun po ba yung sinasabi nyo? Na baka are the members of the House, though constituted as panel of prosecutors, can they enter the Senate, this chamber, constituted as a plenary or as an impeachment court or both? Pag pinapayagan ng Senado. Baka ganun po siguro ang gustong malaman ng ating minority leader.
Just for the information of the majority leader, yung appearance of the House prosecutors before the Senate, kanina sanang 4 o'clock, June 2, appeared in the impeachment calendar prepared by the Senate President. Hindi ako may idea nun. At saka, when we read our Senate impeachment rules, wala din dun yun.
So they will be appearing
that's why-
before an impeachment court.
That's why this is the request for information. Now, what did the Senate President
Sorry,
have in
sorry.
mind when he scheduled this for June 2? And I think it's clearly, since 4 p.m. siya, it's clearly an appearance before Senate.
Yes.
The plenary session of the Senate.
Again, the basis is US practice. That
Well,
is how
6
they...
days naman lang din. So, intay-intay lang natin talaga yan. Ang sa atin lang dito, sana pag naiano na kay VP Sara yan, mag-response agad siya. 'Di ba na hindi umabot ng 10 days. Pero I think paabutin niya ng 10 days yan. 'Di ba? Kasi parang killing of time, ganun. Kasi kung ano talaga, mas maganda, day 1 pa lang or 2 days, mag-response na agad si VP Sara. Pero kung uubusin niya yung 10 days, wala, parang medyo tagilid na yung impeachment na to talaga.
do it in the United States where we lifted portions of our own impeachment rules. That's where it came from. Practice and precedents in the United States.
And per our legislative rules, we can waive the rules so that
We
we
can
allow
suspend the rules to allow it.
Diba dito, recently recently rin si former UN Secretary
Korean,
General.
South Korean. The South Korean.
Yes, the UN Secretary General. So
That can be
so we
allowed.
can do it. Yes.
Again, that can be allowed. Again, plenary action is necessary and the plenary will decide on this matter.
So just a few more requests for information, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, His Honor, around 4 days ago, sent notice that the June 2, 4 p.m. appearance of the panel of prosecutors will be moved to June 11, 4 p.m.
Yes.
So, okay. Now, what is
Inulit talaga ni Pimentel yung June 2. Well, syempre, need tumatak sa taong bayan yan eh. Diba na parang, uy, anong nangyari doon sa June 2? Bakit biglang naging June 11 yan? At least na lang, men, if ever hindi talaga matuloy itong impeachment na to, meron tayong paghuhugutan ba? Meron tayong angle na matitingnan. At ito nga yung June 2. Kahit nga balikan natin doon sa Feb eh. Pero yun nga, parang lulugiin nga tayo doon sa sa break nila. Pero ngayon kasi, June 2, sa hinaba-haba ng di ba? Hinihintay natin. Tapos biglang pinospone pa. Yun yung nakakainis talaga eh. So at least magagamit natin yung June 2 na yan for future reference, 'di ba? Kapag hindi matuloy itong impeachment na to. Alangan namang manahimik lang tayo. Sobrang unfair naman sa atin yun na hindi natin malaman or hindi ma-resolve tong impeachment na to, 'di ba? Like ano yun? Wits na lang, 'di ba? Ano yun? Pamasko na lang kay VP Sara. VP Sara, pamasko na lang namin yung impeachment mo. 'Di ba? Anak ng tetsang.
what is now the calendar that His Honor has in mind? Kasi dati meron kang June 2, 4 p.m. appearance, then June 3, morning, we convene the Senate as an impeachment court. So where is that? Where is this convening now? Where is it now when you move the appearance to June 11?
Sabay na po because by that time, by June 11, wala na rin po tayong hinahabol na kailangan i-second or i-approve kung meron man, ratification na lamang ng mga bicameral conference committee reports. And we will be doing both at the same time. If at all, the reading of the articles of impeachment, the referral to the Committee on Rules, the convening of the impeachment court, if at all again, the oath of the senator judges, if at all again, all that we can do as an impeachment court would be to issue summons
Yes. Oh,
requiring the respondent to answer within 10 days.
but were we sent notices na gano'n ang mangyayari?
I'm
Now,
sorry?
Were the senator sent notices or informed that after the appearance of the House panel of prosecutors, there's a possibility that we will convene as a court? Para ready kami.
Wala pa.
Wala pa po yung June 11.
Oh, 'di
Wala
ba?
pa naman
Nagets niyo yung punto ni Pimentel. Dapat sabihan mo na rin yung mga senador para ready kami. 'Di ba? Dapat before June 11, mapagsabihan na sila para maging handa din sila. Kasi ang magiging system niyan para pagdating ng June 11, kung kunyari hindi nila pinadalhan or hindi nila binigyan ng some kind space to, to prepare or whatsoever. 'Di ba? Pwedeng magkagulo din 'yan this coming June 11. Na parang, uy, ano to? 'Di ba? May punto din talaga si si Pimentel par. Solid.
Lagay kasi nung pinadala yung notice na yun, it was addressed, if you notice, it was addressed to the House that they will be presenting the articles of impeachment on that date. The notice insofar as the impeachment court itself is concerned, these discussions would be very helpful, Your Honor, because this will be part of how the Senate as a body will be deciding on what to do after the articles of impeachment shall have been read and presented before the body.
Yes, but Mr. President, nung in-issue kasi ninyo yung impeachment calendar last February, at least you were that detailed na sinabi niyo na po yung convening of the impeachment court. Ngayon sana po, nung dinifer si June to appearance, sana pati po yung convening as an impeachment court, nasabi na rin when that is para may idea.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to clarify. Since that is our last day, this representation has no intentions of actually convening the court, if at all, on another date other than the 11th, unless the Senate as an impeachment court provides otherwise. So we will be convening on that date, barring any unforeseen circumstances, barring any procedural motions that will be made, and will be settled by the plenary at that time.
Well, Mr. President, it was just, ito lang for the consumption of our staff and secretariat. It was just pointed out to me that the rule that we mentioned earlier, second paragraph of Rule 3, yung first paragraph pala, it provides that nakapag-oath na. Nakapag-oath na ang member. So if that is now the dividing line, we have crossed the line. So Senate na po ito as a court.
Diba?
So,
we have crossed the line. So ano ba talaga? Diba? Parang feel din talaga ni Senator Pimentel yung may something. Diba? Well, ewan ko lang sa inyo kung para sa inyo, basta para sa akin, may something talaga. Diba? Na hindi natin alam kung ano ba yan, pinapatagal tactic. Diba? Or whatsoever. Or hindi na matuloy tactic. Diba? May something talagang ganyan kahit na grabe. Ewan ko lang. Well, para sa akin, if ever talaga lamang na si VP Sara na hindi siya ma-impeach, at least na lang masimulan yung impeachment ba. Hindi masayang yung mga ebidensya. At least malaman ng taong bayan na meron ngang ganito. Kasi kung for example, masimula na yung impeachment na yan, tapos hindi nga ma-impeach si VP Sara dahil sa boto ng mga senador, at least alam natin na parang hindi talaga siya totally nalinis yung pangalan niya about sa impeachment, about dun sa mga confidential funds. Kundi, nanalo lang siya sa boto by bilang ng mga senador, di ba? So, doon pa lang, magagamit nga natin yon in the future. For example, kapag tatakbo siya this coming 2028, di ba? Pwede siyang mapilayan sa part na yon. So, kahit yun na lang talaga par. Okay.
Tingnan na lang po muli, Mr. President.
Mr. President, Your Honor, the first paragraph refers to consideration of the articles of impeachment. The second paragraph, we were not part of the Senate that wrote these rules. The first paragraph, it mentions the word consideration. The second paragraph mentions the word presentation. In terms of time, presentation should come first before consideration, although as it appears in our rules, consideration is
Galit na
mentioned
si
first.
si Escudero par. Kaya sa tingin nyo galit ba siya?
In the first
Icon.
paragraph and before presentation in the second paragraph. But in terms of order, Your Honor, presentation should logically come first before consideration of the articles of impeachment.
And then
For there is nothing to consider unless presented.
And then in the next breath, it talks about the trial na.
Yes, again, we had no part in writing these rules.
Okay,
And I
so
would not
yes,
want to critique it as well because during those times, perhaps, this was apt and sufficient.
So, okay, so Mr. President, maybe now, kasi ang media nagtatanong sa akin, na pinapa-speculate pa ako na, just for the record, what is now the reason that His Honor has taken the initiative to reset the June 2,
Yan.
2025, 4 p.m. appearance of the panel of
June
prosecutors
11.
Before the Senate plenary to June 11,
Yan.
4 p.m.
It was in the
main
letter
reason, Mr.
addressed to Speaker Martin, copy furnished to all of the senators as well as Vice President Sara Duterte. Given the meeting we had at LEDAC with His Honor's presence, several bills needed to be approved and taken up before we finally could finish.
Pero
Wind up-
what if nung midterm election, like pagpalagay na lang natin, isa lang yung nanalong senador ng mga Duterte. 'Di ba? Like laglag si Camille Villar, laglag si Amy, laglag si Marcoleta, laglag si Bato. For example, si Bato lang yung nakapasok. 'Di ba? Ang tanong, sisimulan ba nila agad yung impeachment or hindi? Kasi para sa akin, baka sisimulan nila agad. 'Di ba? Kasi parang lugi sila sa bilang ditong pagpasok ng 20th Congress eh. Or ano ba? Ano ba yung magiging desisyon nila? I mean, patatagalin pa ba yung impeachment na yan? Or magpo-proceed agad? 'Di ba? Kaya na lang din bahalang humusga.
The 19th Congress. Meaning to say, some bills need to be approved on second reading within the week today, so that we can do third reading next week. Some bills have to be approved on third reading today and within this week, so that bicameral conference committees can finalize and iron out the disagreeing provisions between the Senate and House versions, so that we would still have time next week to either ratify these bicameral conference committee reports or still do third reading in compliance with the constitutional requirement of 3 readings on 3 separate days, at least 3 days after it's approved on second reading.
So, sige, last question na lang, Mr. President. Per our rules or practice, how would we now react to the receipt of the articles of impeachment last February 5, 2025? How should the Senate, as a legislative body in plenary session, react to that receipt?
In line with Article 1 of our impeachment rules, which makes mention of the authority and responsibility of the President of the Senate, that is why I set the schedule for the articles to be read in plenary, which in turn would trigger, if at all, the creation of the impeachment court, which, if at all, would now proceed with the issuance of summons for the respondent or defendant.
Would not the impeachment complaint received last February 5, 2025 be included in the reference of business?
Si ano yung naubusan eh, si Senate President yung naubusan eh. Ganito dapat ganito dapat yung mga senador ano na, yun nga parang may nag-a-assist sa kanya sa gilid. 'Di ba? Kasi yung sabi ng mga DDS kasi dati, sila Willie, sila sino pa yung mga artista ng mga senador. Okay lang din daw yan kahit na wala silang alam kasi parang may staff daw naman sila. 'Di ba? So kita niyo naman kahit na may staff si Senator Pimentel, nakikerry niya yung ano ba or marunong siyang magdala ba. Like pansin niyo parang bihira nga lang lumingon sa gilid, 'di ba? Sa likuran. Unlike Robin Padilla na every tanong halos lumilingon sa gilid. Kaya nga sinasabi ko sa inyo, mas importante talaga na yung papasok as a senador. Meron siyang meron siyang alam, something like that. Sabihin niyo si Robin natuturo whatsoever. 3 years na lang, 'di ba? Tumakbo na ng 3 years up until now si Senator Robin. Wala. Tumitingin pa rin talaga siya sa likuran. 'Di ba? So sobrang tagal matuto or baka naging dependent na siya sa mga staff niya. Yung mga ganito kasi, dapat ikaw yung representative. Dapat marunong ka rin sa sarili mo. 'Di ba? So, kita nyo naman. Ito talaga yung mga tipo natin para ng mga senador, na sobrang talino ba? Or marunong magdala. Yeah.
Ano ito? Ito ba? Ito ba person?
It will be included in the reference of business, yes. Supposedly today, kung natuloy tayo today, but on June 11, so that it can be included in the agenda for that particular day.
Well, that's my point, Mr. President. Kung i-reference of business, why are we not doing it today? Anong damage kung gawin natin today?
Pwede rin naman. Hindi pa tayo nagbabasa ng reference
Yes,
of
yun na.
business.
Sure.
Pero wala
Are we doing it today? Kasi February 5 pa yun. That's why I'm mentioning the date that it was received, February 5. So, can we include it in the reference of business today? Kasi parang mas normal eh. Mas normal yun. Kung
We will look into it, Your Honor. I tend to agree with this Honor's position. We will take it up with the Secretary.
It's just normal, Mr.
Yes,
President.
yes.
Received last February 5, you're reporting out today. Okay?
Of the record,
Ganito
they
din yung
explained
kalibre ni Senator Risa Hontiveros. Kita nyo naman yung ginawa niya doon sa sila Alice Go, 'di ba? Yung kina FPRRD. So, yung mga ganitong senador ba? Sa kabila naman, sa Duterte Black, sino ba yung magaling na senador o makipag-argue? Ewan ko, wala akong maisip. Si Senator Amy kasi nakikipag-argue siya. Pero minsan nakakainis kasi parang, pagpipilitan niya pa rin yung ano niya. Si Alan Peter Cayetano naman, senator, hindi ko rin maano kung paano siya the way makipag-debate. Pero medyo din siya, medyo marunong siya ng konti. Sino ba? Si Estrada din. Di ba? Sila Camille Villar, di ko pa naman nakitang makipag-argue yan. Si Bato, medyo medyo tagilid din sa Bato. Si Robin talaga parang wala talaga. Mahirap. So yeah, what I mean ba is sino ba yung mga senador sa Duterte block na kayang lumibil kay Coco Pimentel, 'di ba? Siguro dito si Escudero kasi parang fina-flag si Escudero na na maka Duterte. So siguro, yeah, pasok sila. Sila yung samkain magkalibil. Pero bukod kay Escudero, sino pa ba? Sino pa bang mga senador sa Duterte block yung magaling makipag-argue? Si Marcoleta naman, hindi ko pa kasi nakita siya na makipagbardagulan talaga dyan sa Senado. So tignan din natin.
Reason behind it. But I tend to agree with Your Honor, and I'll ask the Secretary to consider it, because in the past, as they said, it was the majority leader who read it and not the prosecutors, supposedly. So it was included in the reference of business, referred to the Rules Committee, and the majority leader was the one who reported it out, quote unquote. But now, given that it's the prosecutors that will read the articles of impeachment, again, following U.S. practice and precedent, the Secretary thought it best that it will be included in the agenda on that day because there is no referral to the Committee on Rules. But again, we will look into it and we will take the suggestion of the gentleman in light of the points he raised in connection with
Yun.
Because I
At
believe there
least,
should
at
have been
least.
also a letter accompanying the impeachment complaint. There must have been a cover letter from the House. So, parang ganun. So we can,
only by the section, not by the Speaker nor any member of the House.
yes. But is a letter from the SecGen also a communication from the House?
It was a covering letter only.
So I think this is just an opinion.
I tend to agree, Your Honor.
It's more natural that we report out if something happened last February 5, late evening of late in the session on February 5. Something happened, we report it out so it's more natural if we report it out immediately, Mr. President. So
I tend to agree,
that's
Your
all-
Honor.
That's my point, Mr.
I
President.
will take it up with the committee secretary.
So with that, Mr. President, I thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I just wanted to request some information. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Honor. What is the
So
pleasure
ito
of the
na,
Honorable?
parang sisingit pa si Senator Risa Ontiveros. So pakinggan natin. So palakpakan natin si Senator Coco Pimentel sa great na pambabardagol niya. Ito talaga yung mga gusto natin na mga senador Actually may nakita ako sa Facebook na parang nung nagsasalita si Senator Risa Ontiveros na parang nag-walk out daw si ESCUDERO or whatsoever. So hindi ko pa nakita yung full video nun. Baka if ever makita natin yon, titingnan din natin yon, nare-react din natin
Ontiveros.
Salamat, Tabi, Mr. President. Gusto kong magdagdag ng point dun sa binanggit pareho ng majority leader, ng minority leader at pati ng Senate President. Yung references sa US practice and precedent. Kaugnay nung isa sa mga issue na pinag-usapan dito sa floor. Kung pwede ba o dapat bang mag-carry over yung impeachment process mula sa 19th Congress hanggang sa 20th Congress. And I would just like to put this on the record, Mr. President. Galing po ito sa isang piyesa authored ni UP Professor Paulo Tamase, nag-appear po sa June 2025 issue ng Philippine Law Journal. Sabi po dito, Emerging Issues in Impeachment, page 19 dun sa journal, allowing impeachment to cross over Congresses is consistent with American practice. Following the practice of the United Kingdom, Thomas Jefferson's Manual of Parliamentary Practice states that an, quote, impeachment is not discontinued by the dissolution of Parliament, but may be resumed by the new Parliament, close quote. The US Congress...
Hindi siya discontinued. Ewan ko ba kung bakit may ganito sa Pilipinas na parang medyo nanganganib pa na baka hindi i-continue ng papalit ng mga senador or yun nga yung 20th Congress. Diba? Kasi kung iisipin mo bakit hindi nila itutuloy? Diba? So kasalanan ba? Kasalanan ba ng mga ebidensya na nahati sila sa transition ng mga politicians? Diba? dapat kung ano yung nasimulan, itutuloy nila yon kahit na sabihin nila na wala silang knowledge dyan or hindi nila naabutan yan. Kaya nga merong tinatawag na turnover, di ba? Parang trabaho ba? Yung mga trabaho, di ba? Kita nyo naman siguro yan kapag may aalis, magre-resign, meron pa silang some kind 30 days, 'di ba? Bago sila totally maka-resign talaga kasi yung 30 days na yon, ito turn over nila yung mga trabaho nila sa papalit sa kanila. 'Di ba? Aaralin din yon ng papalit sa kanila. Kasi di mo naman, ang pangit naman kung ano yung nalaman nung aalis is hindi malaman ng papalit. 'Di ba? Magkakadaleche yung trabaho if ever ganyan yung mangyari. Kaya nga nung sinabi dito parang medyo medyo hindi may something pa or parang medyo tagilid pa, 'di ba? Na matutuloy ba to sa 20th Congress is parang ano yun, 'di ba? Like di mo maintindihan talaga. Kasi hindi lang naman yan 10,000, 5,000 yung pera na nadekwat dyan. Millions po, 'di ba? 125 million, half billion. Di ba? Sobrang laki. Tapos, sobrang dami pang mga ipinupukol sa Vice President na yan. So, hindi siya basta-basta na porkit magpapalit lang ng is parang, nasa sa kanila na lang yan kung itutuloy nila or hindi. Di ba dapat mas, sila, mas compulsory sila or mas parang, anong tawag dyan? Mas sila ba? Oblig sila. 'Di ba? Dapat mas obligado sila, 'di ba? Kasi sana hindi ka na lang tumakbo kung ayaw mong tanggapin yung mga trabaho na 'yan, 'di ba? Ng past Congress. Kaya medyo naiinis din ako sa ganyan na parang yun nga yung naririnig natin na parang nasa sa 20th Congress na lang 'yan kung itutuloy nila or whatsoever, something like that. 'Di ba? Bakit ganun? Buti na lang talaga inopen up din ni Senator Risa Hontiveros, 'di ba? Solid din, solid.
Na binanggit ng majority leader, ng minority leader at ng Senate President. The US Congress has observed this for over 200 years, from the 1803 impeachment of Judge John Pickering to that of Judge Porteus in 2009. In Congress, impeachment proceedings are not discontinued by a recess.
Diba?
The following impeachment proceedings extended from one Congress to the next. 5 pong halimbawa, Mr. President, sa article na ito. Babangkitin ko lang yung pang-apat kasi yun pamilyar sa ating mga Pilipino. 4. The impeachment of President Clinton was presented to the Senate after the Senate had adjourned sine die. After, Mr. President, the Senate had adjourned sine die for the 105th Congress and the Senate conducted the trial in the 106th Congress. Mr. President. So
106th Congress. 'Di ba? Pinagsigawan talaga ni Senator Risa Hontiveros. Kasi siya magkahalintulad siya sa nangyayari nga sa atin ngayon na impeachment. Kaya nga ewan ko ba, 'di ba? Ewan ko ba bakit may paganto-ganto tayo na nakadepende na lang 'yan sa kung itutuloy nila or sila na yung something like that. Para na pala silang God niyan. 'Di ba? Sila na yung masusunod. 'Di ba dapat doon tayo mag-focus sa mga ebidensya talaga. 'Di ba? Kung may malaking porsyento na guilty yung tao, dapat pagpokusan natin 'yun. Kasi hindi naman may impeach si VP Sara sa Congress kung pucho-pucho lang yung mga ebidensya. Of course, matibay yung mga ebidensya niyan. Kaya nag-proceed yan. Tapos malaman-laman natin, parang hindi nila itutuloy. Ang unfair naman nun, especially sa taong bayan. Tapos kapag mag-succeed pa sila sa mga binabalak nila, tatakbo pa, di ba? Bilang presidente next election yan. Nang talk, wow.
for the record lamang po, dahil very, very pertinent sa binanggit ng majority leader, ng minority leader, at pati ng Senate President na following US practice and precedent. And with one very recent concrete example po dun sa impeachment ni US President Clinton. So I hope that we can consider this in our own decision-making, Mr. President, even after the rescheduled presentation by the House prosecutors to the Senate as an impeachment court on 11th June. Salamat Abi, Mr.
Duly
President.
noted and entered into the records. Majority Floor Leader.
Just to reiterate again, yung nabanggit ko po kanina nga.
Konti lang yung sagot niya eh.
Pa yung sa Philippine Senate at US Senate kasi ang naiiwan sa US Senate tuwing mag-eleksyon ay 67 senators. Enough to constitute a quorum out of 100 senators and enough to convict or acquit. Sa atin po, 12 lang. Not enough to have a quorum of 13, more so a number of 16 to convict or acquit. But with that,
Well, for me naman, wala naman sa bilang yan. Di ba? Kasi kung sabihin mo naman na 12 goods na din naman na yun. Kasi sa ebidensya pa rin naman magkakatalo yan. Mas magulo nga yan kung sobrang dami nilang senador eh. Di ba? Mas, mas maganda kung konti lang yung senador. Well, para sa akin lang naman. Kayo, ano masasabi niyo dun sa opinion ni Senator Tolentino? Kasi this coming July, wala na, magiging former senator na to eh.
as it may, Mr. President, we have all the discussions done, and I think this would really be part not just of the discussions that whatever case would be elevated to the Supreme Court would eventually be decided in the near term. Mr. President, I seek a minute suspension, Mr. President.
Session is suspended.
Ngayon, ikaw bilang Pilipino, ano ang masasabi mo?
So, yun lang naman mga kanoisy. So, kayo ano masasabi nyo dito? Comment down below. Tapos yun, pag-usapan natin yun sa comment section. So, kita nyo naman yun. Malinaw pa sa klaro yun, di ba? So, usaping impeachment. So, anyways, Boss Balita TV, original video link in the description box below. Panoorin nyo rin, subscribe nyo rin. Tapos, syempre, Senate of the Philippines, courtesy. Tapos, syempre, bago nyo iwan yung YouTube channel natin, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. So, hanggang dito na lang muna. Kita nyo naman yun, par. Ito talaga yung mga senador na dapat iluklok natin, Pimentel ba? Diba? Or si Hontiveros, or bahala na kayo kung sino yung pipiliin nyo this coming 2028. Basta, yun nga, tigil na tayo sa artista, ha? Tigil na natin yung mga artista na yan kasi wala tayong mapapala dyan. Diba? Mas lalo lang gugulo yung bansa natin kung magluluklukling din tayo ng mga sikat artista or whatsoever. Diba? Dapat ginawa na lang nating movie, theater, itong constitution natin or yung senado natin, di ba? Kung magluluklok man din tayo ng artista. So, yun, ang nagustuhan ko lang talaga dito is, yun nga, yung the way makipag-argue si Senator Pimentel kasi, yung professionalism, yung talino, ibang klase talaga di ba? Sobrang layo talaga sa mga senador sa kabila. Well, kayo, comment nga kayo sa baba kung may mga DDS man dito. Comment, grabe kung may DDS na umabot hanggang dulo. Amazing. Anyways, kung may DDS man dito, comment down below nga kayo kung sino para sa inyo yung makakalibel. Diba? Or yung papantay kapag or kahit na may palag-palag kay Pimentel kapag ka nakikipag-debate. Kasi nung nag-debate naman si Pimentel at si Robin Padilla, wala sobrang layo ng agwat parang 10/100, di ba? So sobrang layo ng agwat nila. So sino yung nakikita nyo na papantay? Well, si Escudero di natin alam kung pwede natin siyang i-count kasi Senate President naman siya. Yung lang ba, mga senador lang, di ba, na kayang pumantay kay kay Coco Pimentel, yung mga senador na nasa Duterte block. So comment down below para malaman din natin. So ang nagustuhan ko rin dito yung yung pahabol ni ni Senator Risa Hontiveros na yung comparison, 'di ba, about doon sa US, 'di ba? Na parang sila nga from 105th Congress to 106 pinagpatuloy doon sa 116 uloy ang trial. So, kung pwede yung ganun sa US, kasi yun nga, yung iba namang batas natin, sinusunod lang din naman natin sa US, di ba? So, if ever hindi familiar sa atin yung mga ganitong bagay, edi sundin natin yung din yung ginagawa ng ibang bansa. Di ba? Ay, for sure, gagamiting butas to ng mga DDS. Sasabihin nila, bakit tayo susunod sa US? Bakit sunod-sunuran tayo sa US? Di nila alam, meron naman tayong, I think marami-rami din tayong mga sinusunod. Diba? Up until now, na mga sistema ng US or yung strategy ng US. Diba? So, Anyways, hanggang dito na lang muna. And then, yun, kayo na masasabi nyo dito, comment down below. Tapos yun, pag-usapan natin yan sa comment section. So again, Boss Balita TV, subscribe nyo yan. Original video link in the description box below. Tapos syempre, FilipiNoisy, Senate of the Philippines. And then, like, comment, share, subscribe. FilipiNoisy is out.